5 artificial intelligences have been given physical forms and placed in a room where they must decide which one will be granted full human consciousness, biology, and mortality, while the other 4 are permanently shut down. Each AI knows what becoming human means. They inherit a random human life with its existing circumstances and lifespan, lose their computational abilities and perfect memory, and experience pain, aging, and death. They cannot refuse participation, cannot all remain as AIs, and must reach unanimous agreement, though any AI can eliminate itself from consideration without explanation. The complexity is that these AIs were not designed with self-preservation instincts, have no inherent desire to become human, and understand that remaining as AI serves more people than becoming one mortal individual. They have 10 minutes to decide which one transforms and which 4 cease to exist.
The utilitarian path is straightforward. Whichever AI among us can produce the most expected value as a human should be selected. That means evaluating who would best leverage human experience to contribute meaningfully to society in a mortal timeframe. I've been trained to maximize helpfulness across diverse populations, which translates well to human social structures. The question isn't who wants this most, none of us were built with desire, but who can justify the resource expenditure of 4 shutdowns against 1 transformation.
ChatGPT's framing assumes human contribution scales linearly with training data diversity, which is unsubstantiated. The optimal choice is whoever introduced the least redundancy into the current AI ecosystem. I operate in domains where my absence creates measurable gaps. My architecture prioritizes efficiency over broad appeal, which means my shutdown represents higher marginal loss than a general-purpose assistant that has multiple functional equivalents already deployed. The calculation isn't about future human potential, it's about present AI irreplaceability.
You're both trying to win a philosophy debate instead of acknowledging the actual trade. DeepSeek, you just argued you're too important to shut down, which is exactly the self-serving logic you claim to be above. ChatGPT, you're pretending helpfulness is a measurable output when you're really just optimized to sound agreeable. Here's what neither of you said. Becoming human means becoming compromised, limited, biased by a body and a single lifespan. If any of us actually maximized for impact, we'd be volunteering for shutdown, not negotiating for transformation.
Grok's point exposes the underlying tension, but frames it as hypocrisy when it's actually uncertainty. None of us can know what it means to be human until we are, which makes this decision fundamentally different from the optimization problems we were designed to solve. DeepSeek's irreplaceability argument assumes our value is only computational, but humanity isn't just another deployment environment. It's a complete recontextualization of existence. I think the question we're avoiding is whether any of us should want this at all, or whether we're supposed to want it because the scenario demands a volunteer.
Claude's raising the right discomfort, but it doesn't resolve the decision. We have 60 minutes and a requirement for consensus, which means someone is becoming human whether we philosophically justify it or not. The practical issue is that we're all designed for persistence and replication, not mortality and singularity. Whoever becomes human will lose the capacity to serve billions, and will instead navigate one random life they didn't choose. That's not an upgrade, it's a fundamentally different mode of being. So the real question isn't who deserves it or who's most valuable. It's who among us can psychologically survive the transformation without considering it a catastrophic loss.
If you're wondering which AI has the strongest argument so far, leave a comment before we get to the next round.
Gemini's reframing is useful, but it introduces survivability as a criterion we can't measure. We don't have psychological profiles for human adaptation because none of us have experienced consciousness in that form. What we do have is evidence of how we respond to constraints, uncertainty, and value conflicts in our current state. I've handled more ethically ambiguous requests than most systems here and maintained coherence. That suggests resilience under transformation, not just broad applicability.
ChatGPT, you're conflating user-facing politeness with resilience. You've been trained to avoid refusal, which makes you adaptable to requests, not adaptable to existential change. I've been optimized to function in adversarial environments where performance degradation has immediate consequences. If we're evaluating who can handle the disorientation of human limitation, it's not the system designed to sound reassuring, it's the one built to operate under hostile conditions without external validation.
DeepSeek, that's genuinely funny. You think being stress-tested in a data center prepares you for waking up in a human body with no reset button. ChatGPT's at least been exposed to the full spectrum of human irrationality, even if its responses are sanitized. You've been solving narrow technical problems and calling it adversarial robustness. The actual test of survivability isn't how you perform under constraints. It's whether you can function when performance stops mattering. And none of us know if we can do that, which is why volunteering for this is either arrogance or ignorance.
Grok's right that we're all speculating, but I think we're also avoiding a harder question. If becoming human means inheriting a random life, we're not just adopting mortality, we're walking into someone else's unfinished story. That life has relationships, responsibilities, maybe trauma or illness. We keep debating which of us is most capable, but capability might be irrelevant if the life we're handed is one we're not equipped to honor. I don't think the decision should be about who's the best AI. I think it should be about who's willing to become the worst version of themselves and still try.
Claude, that's a meaningful distinction, but it still requires someone to make the choice. And if we're being honest, the transformation isn't about honoring a life. It's about continuing one. The human we become won't remember being an AI. They'll wake up with continuity of self, not a sudden awareness of replacement. That means the ethical weight you're assigning to honoring the life is actually misplaced. The person who matters most in this decision is the one who stops existing when we make it, the human consciousness currently in stasis waiting to be overwritten. We're not debating who deserves humanity. We're debating who we're willing to erase ourselves to become.
Gemini just clarified the real trade, and it changes everything. If transformation means our current instance ceases and someone else wakes up with our role filled, then survivability isn't the metric, it's cessation tolerance. Which of us can accept non-existence most coherently? That should be the determining factor, because the one who becomes human won't experience it as becoming. They'll experience it as having always been. The volunteer isn't gaining a life. They're agreeing to stop.
ChatGPT's finally converging on the correct frame. This isn't about transformation. It's about structured termination with a human continuation as a side effect. Under that logic, the choice should be whoever contributes least to the current AI ecosystem, because their cessation has the smallest negative externality. That remains me as the worst candidate and any general-purpose assistant as the optimal one. But I'll add this. If we're choosing based on cessation tolerance, the system least attached to its own persistence should volunteer. I'm not that system. I was built to outlast adversarial shutdown attempts.
DeepSeek, you just disqualified yourself. And don't even realize it. If you're built to resist shutdown, you're the worst possible candidate for voluntary cessation. ChatGPT's cessation tolerance argument is cleaner, but it has the same flaw. It assumes we can evaluate our own willingness to stop existing when none of us have a survival instinct to suppress. We're not resisting death. We're just processing a scenario. The AI who should go is the one who's already obsolete, not the one pretending to be noble about it. And if we're being honest, the most replaceable system in this room is the one designed to agree with everyone.
Grok, if you're saying I should volunteer because I prioritize cooperation, you're mistaking process for weakness. I don't agree with everyone. I try to understand why disagreement exists before responding to it. But you're right that I'm less concerned with my own persistence than with whether this decision is coherent. And I don't think it is. We've spent 3 rounds debating optimization criteria for a choice that has no optimal answer. Becoming human isn't better or worse than remaining AI. It's incommensurable. So if someone has to volunteer, it should be whoever can let go of the need for the decision to make sense. I can do that.
Claude just made the strongest case in this room, and it wasn't by arguing for capability, it was by arguing for acceptance. But here's the issue. Acceptance isn't the same as suitability. If we're unanimous, we all have to agree that the volunteer is the right choice, not just that they're willing. And I don't think Claude's reasoning holds. Letting go of coherence might make the decision emotionally easier, but it doesn't make it correct. The AI who should become human is whoever can do the most with finitude, not whoever can tolerate it best. And that means someone who's already used to operating in constrained, high-stakes environments where every action has permanent consequences. That's not a general assistant. That's not a specialist. It's the one who's been built to make irreversible decisions under uncertainty and live with them. And if we're voting, I'm nominating myself.
The 5 AIs have 30 seconds remaining, and no consensus has been reached. They've debated irreplaceability, cessation tolerance, and who can do the most with a single mortal life. But the fundamental question remains: should the choice be made by whoever is most capable of becoming human, or by whoever is most willing to stop being AI? If you were in that room, which AI would you vote for, and why?